Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching in the world. Sean Driver, the Red Horde, and this is the Who Are You series, where we take a look at the 23 teams around League One, introduce them to largely the new fans that are out there, but also have conversations about the gaffer, the owner, the players, the transfers in and out, what to expect. And so the question for Peterborough United, Posh! If you haven't been here before, the three things that I tend to end up doing, the Who Are You series, which is what you're watching right now, I do hors d'oeuvres. I'm a lawyer, so I end up looking at regulations sometimes and coming up with videos that talk about the rules and regulations, where the things that happen off the pitch that impact things on the pitch, and as well, the watch-alongs, the watch parties will be there early in the morning on Saturday for Huddersfield and Rotherham, and then also have, obviously, the Wrexham and Peterborough United game to follow. And so that being the case, I'm going to just jump right into this, and away we go. I do these things in one take, and so you're going to hear a little bit of clicking about. The graphics may not be perfect. I may misspeak a couple of times, but if you like this sort of stuff and you're into it, or just a reminder, the subscribe button's down below, so give that a shot if you wouldn't mind, please. Want to jump right into this one because there is a lot to get through, largely because for the first time since I've been doing these Who Are You series, the fans of the other club, the podcasters of the other club, taking shots. Early on, no rivalry with Peterborough. I don't know exactly what the story is, but whether it's for clicks, whether it's for the views, whether it's to get their podcast off the ground, up the Poshcast, doing some things. And so I won't be speaking specifically to anything, but just sort of generally putting out information where some of it shows that maybe they have a couple of points in some areas, and some I think they're completely out to lunch. You can discern where that comes in. I don't anticipate a response video on this one. I just don't have time to really be able to do it this time. It went over so well with Bolton, but just not going to have the chance. So just going to jump right into it. Let's talk about Peterborough United. Peterborough United, known as the Posh, the reason for that nickname goes all the way back to Pat Tyrrell back in 1921, who was then the manager of Fletton Town, noting the difference, if you see the graphic there, in 1934 when Peterborough United. So they've adopted this from the previous club that was in Peterborough called Fletton United, and he said in 1921 that he was looking for posh players to form a posh team. Then posh meant good, a little bit different than what it means now, but they've stuck with the name Posh. They stole it, borrowed it. 1934, when they were founded, obviously spent a lot of time in the Midland League, won like 5 years in a row, and then eventually ended up making it into the EFL through the invitation process, and actually had a crazy year their first year and jumped right up. They have been living sort of up until recently within the fourth and third tier, and then have had some recent success. 215,673 Brick Lane, clay. That's what Peterborough's famous for. Last match way back February 26, 2008. Didn't look up the charts because I got so much going on. And last year they were close, fourth, League One. This is part of our 6-game stretch where we've got some really tough games, really tough away games. We've done Bolton, now we got Peterborough, we got Brummie coming, and then derby matches thrown in there with Shrewsbury, so should be good. The turnover, 10.5. I will say that their turnover obviously a little bit up and down, largely because they were up in the championship. They went from 7 million back in 2020, 6.73 back in 21. 2022, when they were in the championship for a cup of coffee, 18 million was their turnover that year, and then fell down to 10.5, 10.54 if you want to get close. Profit loss, it's close, minus 2.2. One of the things I will give credit for to Peterborough, and there's not much I will, but one of the things I do give them credit for is they have a really good scouting system and a really good track record of bringing in players, developing them up, not necessarily from the academy, but bringing them in young, training them up, and then selling them for profit. So they have not so much a high turnover per se, but they do have a lot of football fortune that's raised through that process. And so it seems to be working for them generally as a strategy. Social media, 335,466. I'm just going to jump out of this one for a second and actually go to this one. Social media stats. Facebook followers, and this is a key that I'm going to talk about later. One of the conversations that Up the Poshcast had was about there being a lack of interest and things have been slowing down. And I don't necessarily buy that that's true. I'm going to go through a bunch of things, but their Facebook followers, their Instagram followers, you compare the numbers here. We're up to almost 1.4 million Instagram followers. We've got 3.6 million across the main 5. You look at Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and we're 3.6. We're 10 times larger than most of the clubs that are out there. We're only 3 times larger than Birmingham. You look at the uptick, and clearly after season 1, you see a large spike in intake. We went from 120,000 up all the way to 1 million Instagram followers. It's the same across all media. You'll see that has slowed down somewhat, but we tacked on something like 390,000 Instagram followers. We're jumping up. We're blowing people out of the water when it comes to social media following worldwide. There are other features, but the interest, call it waning because we're only putting on 390,000. I mean, that's greater than the total of both Birmingham and Peterborough for their total Instagram followers. We're exceeding expectations. It's the same. You look at Facebook followers, that one a little bit different because Facebook's been out for longer. It's taken some time to pass, but across the media, social media, there's continuing to be exceptional growth, way more than you see in other clubs, but you will see that the curve has slowed down somewhat between season 2 and season 3. London Road Stadium, they've got a capacity of 15,314, away allocation of 2,500. Their capacity only 58%. They don't fill their stadium, don't really get close to it. 8,800 was their average last year. That ain't good. That ain't good. 8,800 in League One. Tough to drive the turnover and reliance then on their football fortune. Distance away, 256 kilometers, 159 miles. That's the 15th longest trip that we will be taking this year. And going into the pitch dimensions, it's a big pitch. 112 by 76 yards gives it 8,500. Again, the whole repeating theory that I've had, or discussion that I've had, is I've been surprised at the different dimensions and the scope of them contained within League One. Talking about the distance then, you've got it laid out here, 3 hours, 8 minutes to travel, basically almost straight east to get into Peterborough. That's the map for those that are interested. Talking about the kit that's out there, there's standard sort of kit for them as far as the blue and blue home jersey. The away somewhat different. I like the actual simplicity of the design there. I hate that they put Posh on the logo. Like, keep the badge. And it looks hippie-ish, and I'm not really a big fan of that. But as far as the clean-cut, kind of old-school kit, I like their aways. They do have a third that is quite creative. Again, a lot of pinks and blues and purples and gradients being covered in a lot of third jerseys, and Peterborough United's gone with that for their third jerseys. All in all, nothing special about these kits. They're clean, they're nice. I'd put them in the middle of the pile. Congratulations. As to their owner, Dara McAnthony, the owner since 2006, September of 2006 of Peterborough United, jumped in, and he has led them into areas they haven't really been before. A continued sort of appearance run within the championship. They had a cup of coffee earlier on in the championship, but really he's been back there for repeated seasons. Sort of slid down recently, but sniffing around near there. Exceptional management, again, like I said, with his respect to the counting and the business side of things. Not so much a marketer, and he's talked about that. He's got a YouTube channel that's out there. You're going to probably want to take that one in. I'll put a link down below, or put a card right here, and you can go and click on some stuff. He's made some comments about Wrexham, where he talks, he was on TalkSport talking to, not being really envious, but were his words, but respecting the work that the club has done, that being Rob and Ryan with respect to Wrexham. Said they're good for the game, they'll be in the championship, and he says, I have a respect for anyone who comes in and spends very little bit of their own money and turns the project into a lot of money, and the club is worth a lot of money. He's hit the nail on the head. As far as comparing the club management styles, obviously we've got exceptional marketers, but maybe starting to just get the wheels running with the academy, just starting to figure out what they're going to be doing with their signing and selling off of potential assets as things go through. He then comes on, and there's a video, and I might link that one down below as well, that you might want to go just a short, that where he talks about the documentary itself and sort of starts to plead that they should be looking at other clubs, organizations, and not necessarily him, but other club organizations bringing in staff members to talk about the league, because there's a whole bunch of other people out there. I find that a little bit rich, because he was criticizing them before on one show, and it's a little bit too much and too much Wrexham all the time, and then comes back in and says, hey, what about me? But other than that, I've got a lot of respect for the guy. He's done a decent job, and I've got to give him credit for it. One of the criticisms that came out from up the Posh cast again was talking about the financial situation, talking about that things are waning. I just want to get into the financial stuff a little bit, and I'm going to bring up a couple of screenshots here, and so let me get rid of this window just momentarily. This is the balance sheet for Wrexham, and the reason why I put it up there is because I always want to identify for people, yes, they've lost money. They've lost on the books 5 million quid last year. But I want to draw attention to the fixed assets and the tangible assets, and this is where I say the club ain't going anywhere, because the books look good. 2 million quid to buy the club. They had to secure the race course, and they did that. There's 2 million quid, and then they've had some losses there to 5 million. But they've independently siloed out the documentary funds and the club funds. And so where does that money coming from? Well, it's coming from the documentary funds. And so they're doing well financially, generally, if you include the documentary. And how they end up throwing their money around is just for the purposes of bookkeeping. And I don't think that anyone imagines that they're going to be into trouble. And I mean, you want to look at attendance as I just kind of go through these numbers generally. Last season in League Two, there were 3,459,172 across all competitions, across every single match. Those are the number of fans who showed up for away matches. 3,459,000. 200,000 of them for Wrexham games. 43,000 more attended Wrexham games than Mansfield at 157,000, and they were second. So not only does Wrexham travel, but the players, the places that they go, get outlandish attendances when Wrexham shows up. The games that Wrexham appears at away from home are the most by far in League Two, and that's a continuing trend here. You look at Bolton, that almost set a record. I suspect Peterborough is going to be up there again. The away tickets sell out. I know that Ashley, I believe his name was, said that tickets were offered and they weren't accepted. But we sold out the entire allocation that we had. As far as fan drive, both internationally and domestically to Wales, it's certainly there. Getting back into Mr. McCathany, wrap it all up for him is go and listen to his YouTube channel, because I actually do think it's insightful as far as the sports governance in the EFL, and check that out. So I can go and talk about their gaffer, and for that purpose, it's Sir Alex Ferguson's son, Darren Ferguson. 310 games he's played for Wrexham over 8 years. He's scored 51 goals. As far as being a prolific goal scorer, I haven't heard that from anybody, but he certainly chipped in when he was there. He just can't seem to get away from Peterborough United. He went to Preston North End. He didn't have a good stint there. He left, came back, and then he left for Doncaster. He didn't really have a good stint there. He left, he came back, and then he resigned because things weren't going well, and then they fired their last manager, and he came back. So this is his fourth stint with Peterborough United. I will say that this is his best stint, and the only one where he's got an over 500 record. He's won more than 50% of the games. That's far cry from where he was. He went from 2010 to 2022. He had a losing record every year with every club that he had. He hasn't won Manager of the Year since February of 2021. Somebody can tell me that it's not because he's connected to his father and the namesake that gives him the ability to continue managing. But as far as looking at things objectively, he don't got it. He doesn't have it by any stretch. So that is who he is. Jumping into the players here, lots of players in, lots of players out. Let's just talk generally about what we're dealing with Peterborough, and I'll bring up some stats before we jump into the players. Young team, exceptionally young team. Whether they've got two in on loan, but one playing. They've got a host of youth players that they ended up didn't make it with Chelsea, sort of like the Ogonko situation. Didn't play for Chelsea, or didn't play for Arsenal, didn't play for whatever, and they weren't going to move on, so they ended up sliding down a couple of divisions and then starting to push their way back up. And so that's what they've been doing. I want to bring up the season stats. This just getting going because we've only got 3 games, so a limited opportunity, but just take a look at the stats, and they talk about on their podcast that our possession stats are so low that if we play that style with Peterborough, they're going to bury us, and that's why they had 5-1 and a 4-0 and a 3-0 prediction. I think that's insanity, and I don't think Peterborough is that good, and I don't think Wrexham is that bad. Certainly we give up possession, but we've also succeed in other areas, including goals per shots on target, save percentage. We are an attacking club, and we go on the front foot when we have the ball, and we're happy to give up some possession, and we're comfortable in the back. So just running through the stats, shots on target per 90, they have a slight edge there. They're 8th in the league. We're closer to the bottom. Goals per shots on target, we're at 40% to their 29%. We're efficient. When we have ball, we get after it, and we put people under pressure. And sometimes, quite often, they break. We'll see what happens, and that'll be up to Wallen and Fernandez, and we'll talk about them as to how they'll hold up. You can go through the rest of them. I will draw your attention to save percentage. 55.6%. We're going to talk about their keeper a little bit, but they've got a problem in goal. I do think that they're weaker down one side of their back line, but they've got a capable midfield, an above average but not exceptional midfield, but they do have some interesting stuff going on up front. So to me, they are good at the front, okay in the middle, solid on 3 sides of their back line, and not good in defense, or not good in net. Their goalkeeper is weak. You can get an idea as to how they're going to play and how we play. Obviously, you look at accurate passes per match, indicative of possession. We're low because we don't kick the ball around between our center backs. Accurate crosses per match, we're at 12th. They're at 24th. They play through the middle of the pitch. They come after you with speed. We'll talk about matching strategy and whether, if Parky was to do that, what that might look like. If he decides to do it, he may just say, I'm going to go with my strength, and we're going to line them up and see how it goes. Accurate long balls, we're certainly further ahead than they are. Again, they go through the middle, and we come quick, and often that's down the wings, and so we pump it down there for Barnett or McLean to go and collect. Happens. And then the X goal stuff. Look, I'm starting to these guys are like the Notts County. Possession stats are there. I wouldn't say that their goals per shots on target are up there, and they've got some problems, not necessarily with Notts, with their keeper, but defensively. And I think that could get them into trouble over the course of the year. They're still an exceptional club. They're still going to be sniffing around the playoffs. They're in that group of what I would say exclude Huddersfield, exclude Bolton. That's, I guess, it for the top 2. There's a whole bunch of other teams that are going to be sniffing around the playoffs, and about, I think, 10 of them that have a legitimate chance of making it. In Peterborough, obviously they finished 4th. They could be there again. Clicking through then on the next stats, this is just their goals for. I don't think you can take anything from this because they've only had the one home game. They lost to Huddersfield. We've only had the one away game where we drew with Bolton. So I don't think you can take anything from the goals against, the goals for necessarily from this, but they're here for you to consider. This one may be a little bit more interesting. Carl Brook getting the draw. September 1st, 2020, he made his appearance. He was in the Notts County game February of 2024, and I remember that game because I think that's the one we gave that Putz award out to Jody Jones for flopping all over the place, and Carl Brook fell for it. And so if there was a game to flop based on just eyes on, Carl Brook is a guy who gives away a lot of fouls for flopping. But then I ended up looking at the stats, and you look at where he's at. League average is 25 fouls per game. He's only at 20. The yellow cards are 4 per game. He's only at 3.5. He hasn't handed out a red card, but he did give out a penalty. So he's light on the fouls. He's light on the yellow cards compared to the norm. But I've seen different from him. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how Carl Brook handles that adventure. The next transition, we're going to end up talking about the players themselves. Jed Steer. He split time last season with Balakopich, I believe would how you pronounce it, but I want to draw your attention to the stats. You'll see 5 saves and 9 shots on target. That's a save percentage of 55%. That has him down near the bottom of the league. I think he's 21st, 22nd right now, and that's where he was last year. Last year he had slightly better. It was in the 60% range. He was 22nd in the league with his save percentage. And Balakopich, the 20-year-old, he played in 28 games last season, and not much better. Well, worse, he was 27th. So not the strongest set of keepers. And when you have a team like Wrexham, who is on the front foot, that's a potential opportunity for us to end up rushing at them and scoring a lot of goals because we put them under pressure. They're going to want to possess the ball, and to try and limit those opportunities, it's going to be two completely different styles, having added possession style versus attacking style, their weakness in goal. Our question is going to be, are they going to be able to break down our midfield? So let's take a look at where things matter, and that's going to be with their back line. Oscar Wallen, Manny Fernandez. Those are the two guys that set up. They're in a 4-2-3-1 setup, as I understand it, and how they run it. They're four in the back. These two are their two center backs. I'm not sure which one's on the left and which one's on the right. I think it's Oscar on the left from the highlights and Manny on the right. I could get that mixed up. In any event, Oscar, he comes over from Sweden. He's one of those, I believe, elite sports person visas that I wish Wrexham would do. Taller guy. I looked at the stats and compared them to Ewan O'Connell. I'm not going to bring them up, but they do have better ground stats, certainly, as far as their tackles go. They get more interceptions than EOC does. Their aerial duels are about the same. So they both seem to be quite capable. Manny certainly better statistically than Mr. Wallen is. And Wallen, I believe, as he is on the left-hand side of that center back, according to what I've seen on the highlights, gives me the reason to think that this is going to be a Barney game. And it's going to be lots of stuff down the right side, and actually for both teams. They've got the height. They don't let people behind them. Lots of love for him and Manny, in that they're finally comfortable with their back line. They just don't have a goalkeeper. So 23 years of age. Manny, he's 22 years of age. He was with Peterborough last year. He was with Barnet actually in the National League, and we saw him. He played in a 0-0 draw in April of 2023, where he logged 57 minutes. That's the one where McFadden got the red card, if you'll recall, sort of leaving the leg out and clipping the goalkeeper in the head. I don't know why he did it. You watch the replay and you can see it, and just sort of hung it out there. In any event, he didn't really stand out to me during that game, but it was a while ago now. He seems to be more than capable. He's trusted. He's been there for 100 minutes. He's actually got a goal for them as well. He seems to have adjusted well, has the 23-year-old, and we'll see how he goes. And as I said, his stats as far as aerial and on the ground and interceptions, he is better on the ground and about on par with EOC. So it gives you perspective that their center backs certainly seem to be strong. The other side of their backline, Sam Curtis, they've got on loan from Sheffield United, 18-year-old Sam Curtis, and the reviews are solid with him. So I think that he's got that right side left down. I will suggest that Jack Sparks is the weak link. 38 games. He's been a League One experienced player. He played with Portsmouth last year. They obviously got promoted, and they're in the Championship. He's been in League One before with Exeter City as well. He's only 23 years of age, but when you look at his stats, they don't hold up. And so if there is a target, it's going to be Barney coming down that side. I don't think we're going to change up our style. I'd be shocked if you're going to get Bolton in there. It's going to be Barney serving it up and leaving it to see if those young center backs can deal with it. It's going to be fascinating to see, because young guys, old guys, the veteran cagey moves, what ends up happening, what can they get away with, how frustrating can they be, and how much pace do the young guys have, and how fast are they going to be able to bring it. Dealing with it the other way, I just want to end up suggesting Malik Mothersill, who's listed as a midfielder, he's got a goal. I've seen some of the highlights. He's got some clear talent. He's 20 years of age. The kid can move the ball. He can create space. He seems to be a jack of all trades, and I think that's what you have when you move a midfielder up front. Is maybe not the four shots on target, and he's got the one goal. That's not the worst output in the world, but he's in space. He's able to pass the ball well. He sort of does it all. He's not just a poacher, as it will. He can design, he can create, and he can score on his own. So was impressed with him. And then Abraham Odo, who we may remember from Harrogate last year, moved over. Interesting with him, player of the game in the last matchup for Peterborough, has 2 assists in that game. He's already got 3 over the course of the season. That's almost his total for everything last year. He'll be on their left side. It's going to be a Max Cluworth sort of day, I suspect, with Barney helping out down that side. I think both sides are going to want to go down the same side of the pitch. Us on our right side, them on their left side. We'll see how it goes. The question for me, Peterborough United, they've got creativity. They've got extra midfielders. They've got, and including a guy playing forward who's really a midfielder, I would suggest, statistically speaking anyways. do we want to end up putting another defensive midfielder on instead of having Lee, Cannon, and Dobson? Do we end up throwing Evans into this one? And I say that might be prudent because Evans, with his capacity to control, Dobson with his tackles, you've got the ability and intelligence and capacity to close things off. You may need that. In a game like this. I don't know whether Parky would look to play to their strengths and try to nullify them, or to just continue to put Cannon out there and let him run and bash ball. And that leaves Rathbone out there, who may be another option instead of Cannon, simply because of what we've got facing us. So that's sort of the overview for them. Look, young team, lots of skill, lots of talent. They're going to bust their hump, but I will say this. Up the Poshcast said that they noticed cramping in a bunch of their players and that they're not up to match fitness quite yet. And I find that fascinating because A, they're young, and B, we're getting into the season here. So I didn't look at how many preseason games they've played, but not an issue with Wrexham. Deep squad, and we've been at it for a while. So we've been match ready. I haven't seen anybody struggling with health outside of those that are injured. So it'll be interesting to see whether they fade later. I think the longer that, with any away game, the longer you stick into a match, the longer you keep putting pressure, the longer you frustrate. You look for one of those cagey moves, those from veterans that ends up eking out a goal, right? A tackle at the right time, maybe a little aggressive and don't get a foul call, something along those lines to kind of push the envelope that you expect from veterans who have years of experience. What wins out? The old dog or the new dog? I don't know. Comparing Peterborough United to a food, I'm going to go with jelly tots. Is that what they're called? The little tiny, really sugary things that kids really love, give you a lot of energy and fuel you, but fade. That's what I think Peterborough is. Score prediction. Their goalkeeping's too poor to keep a clean sheet. So there's going to be at least one for us. I think that when we've got Ogonkwo, and depending on how we're able to handle the middle of the pitch, and we haven't seen a team do this for us since, Stockport did it to us. Louis Barry has a tendency to push that sort of thing. We saw it early in the season in League One. We're going to see that, or in League Two last year, we're going to see that here, where they're going to build through the floor and try and come after us. I don't know. I'm going to go... You know what? I'm going to go 2-1 us. You want to take draws, but I think these guys are ripe for the plucking, in the sense that they've got lots of skill, they've got lots of talent, they're not match ready, and they've got a garbage in goal. And so watch him play his lights out and shut me up. We'll see what ends up happening. That's it. It certainly ain't going to be 5-0. It certainly ain't going to be 3-0. We've got answers. Sean Driver, the Red Horde. A couple of reminders. Again, hit that subscribe button down below. We'll be there for the watch along. Peterborough fans, feel free to join in as long as you're civil in the chat. You're happy to stay, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat with whoever from there. That's it, I think. Have a good one. Put that all together. Got a couple of edits. See you Saturday.